Hello students, today we are going to see sampling theorem. Now the sampling theorem you might have heard many times at many instances maybe, or not till now. You are going to listen, you are going to hear it in your next semester, upcoming semester, because everywhere it is being used. Because sampling theorem is the first step towards digitization, and as all we know, right now we are living in a digitized world, right? Everywhere we are using digitization. So sampling, without sampling theorem, it is not possible to go to or enter to a digital medium. So sampling theorem is the first step towards digitization, which we are using to convert a continuous time signal to a discrete time signal. And once it has been converted to discrete, then we can convert that signal to digital. Then why we are behind converting a continuous signal to a discrete signal? Because if you try to store a continuous signal, the continuous signal has infinite data. Every instant of time, the signal is present. So to store a continuous time signal, we need infinite memory. And that is not possible. This is not practical. So what we do is we only store few samples of the data so that the storage will be minimum. And this is not the only advantage of converting a continuous to discrete signal, but also the noise effect gets reduced when we go to a digital signal. So these are few reasons why we wanted to convert a continuous signal to a digital signal, and to do that, sampling theorem is the first step in carrying out this process of digitization. So wherever you go to digital signals, wherever you are going to handle digital signals, the sampling theorem comes into picture. So now, what is sampling theorem? As this is important for your exams also, most of the time it is asked for 10 marks, in which you have to write the statement and prove the sampling theorem. So first of all, we will start with the statement. So what the statement says, a continuous time. Obviously, we are starting with a continuous signal. So continuous time, finite energy. Now you all know what is energy signal and power signal. What do you mean by finite and infinite energy of the signal? So the signal that we are taking is a continuous time, finite energy, low pass band limited signal. Can be completely represented and recovered back using its samples when sampling frequency Fs is greater than or equal to twice the maximum frequency component Fm of message signal. That is, Fs should be greater than or equal to 2Fm. So let's see this in detail. As I have told you, first of all, the signal is a continuous time signal. Mostly whatever signals generated in nature are continuous time. As now I am generating audio signal, it is a continuous time. In nature, we cannot generate a discrete signal. So whatever natural signals are there that we wanted to record or store or that we wanted to transmit, we have to digitize it. So let's first start with continuous signal. If it is a finite energy signal, and it is a low pass band limited signal. Now, what do you mean by low pass band limited signal? What do you mean by band limited signal? Now, whenever we are generating any signal, we do not count its frequency and we generate it. As right now I am talking or I am generating audio signal, so I do not have a measure of till this frequency only I will talk and I will not go beyond that frequency. So whenever we generate a natural signal, we don't know till what frequency limit it will go, but whatever maximum frequency it is taking, then accordingly we need that much bandwidth to send that signal. So for that we need to band limit the signal. Means what? We are going to cut off. So first I am considering a low pass. That means what we are doing is whatever signal I am going to process, that I am going to sample and send, I am going to select only the low frequency components and I am going to reject the high frequency components. So that means I am going to lose some data. But yes, if I am losing some data and if that is not making much difference in the signal, I can afford to lose that data. So what we are doing here is we are using a band limited signal. Whatever signal is generated, first it is passed through a low pass signal which will be having some cutoff frequency FM. So if I am having a cutoff frequency FM, the maximum frequency present in the resultant data is going to be FM. And that's why here we have considered the maximum frequency component of the signal FM. Now this can be completely represented. Such a signal can be completely represented and recovered back. So we have to first represent the signal using its samples when the sampling frequency Fs. So what we are doing is we are sampling that signal with the frequency Fs. So if I wanted to completely represent the signal with its samples, the frequency Fs should be at least equal to or greater than the maximum frequency component in the signal. And not only to represent, to recover the data back. So as I have now told you, if I wanted to send my audio, so for from one place to another place, so wherever I am sending, I will be converting the analog signal or continuous signal to a digital signal for transmission purpose. Once it reaches the receiver side, the reverse process happens. This discrete signal or digital signal is again converted back to analog signal so that you can hear that audio signal. So whenever I am trying to recover back my signal from samples, the recovered signal will be good or it will match the original signal only when this condition of sampling is satisfied, that is Fs is greater than or equal to 2FM. If we do not satisfy this condition, the recovered signal, the regenerated signal will not be of that quality as that of continuous signal. So this is very important. I hope that you have understood what does this sampling theorem means. We have seen each and every. So what finally you have to remember is whatever is the maximum frequency in the signal, you have to sample that with at least twice that of its maximum frequency. So here if whatever I have drawn here, this is the signal x of t, suppose that I have wanted to sample. Okay, having a, suppose this frequency, this signal is having a frequency of 1 hertz. I do not have this place here. Let me just show you. If I am having a free signal, simple sinusoidal signal like this, okay, a sine wave, and its frequency is 1 hertz. 1 hertz means in 1 second it is completing 1 cycle, right? So what is the maximum frequency in the signal? 1 hertz. Okay. Suppose now if I am going to use not going to use this particular sampling theorem. Suppose I have just sampled this signal, and in 1 second I am going to take only one sample. So this is the time period. This is the 1 second period. So in this period I will take only one, or I will note down only one sample. So suppose the sample is taken here. So what is the resultant signal? I will get a signal like this. There is one sample. There may be another sine wave continuing like this. For this again I am going to get one sample. So in each oscillation or in cycle I am taking one sample. So this is the result after sampling. Now if I try to recover my signal from these two samples, can I get this original signal back where I am having two oscillations? So if I just try to join, this is the sample, this is the sample, the in between data is lost after sampling. So if I try to recover, there are numerous possibilities, but the thing is we generally just join these sample tops and get the signal. So if I join these sample tops, whatever signal I am getting, it does not match with my original signal, not at all. Okay, why? Because I have taken only one sample. Its frequency is 1 hertz and I have taken only one sample in this. So this is not possible. What if I take two samples? So let's say I am taking one sample here and I will take one sample here. Okay, then what will be the resultant signal? I will get one sample here, one sample here, and if I am having one more cycle, I will get one sample here, one sample here. So two samples per cycle. Now if I try to recover the data by joining the samples, so you can see now, at least not the perfect one, we have at least got a signal which matches somehow to the original signal. isn't it? So what we have done in 1 hertz, for 1 hertz frequency, how many samples we have taken? We have taken 2 samples. So the frequency of sampling is 2 hertz here. Okay, so this is what we have seen here, that frequency of sampling should be equal to 2 FM. So here FM is 1 hertz and Fs is 2 hertz. So if it is equal to, at least we have a chance of recovering our signal back. If the sampling frequency is less than that, it is not possible to recover signal at the receiver side. And if it is greater, that is much better. That means instead of only taking 2 samples, I will take here 4 samples. So that will give me the better result after recovery. Okay. So let's take let's go to the actual proof of this. For this proof, we need these diagrams. And what these diagrams means? This is the signal. The first is showing me the signal that I wanted to sample. So this is the analog signal, isn't it? It is a continuous signal, and we are taking care that it will be having a finite energy, and it is passed through a low pass band limited signal. Now how I will come to know that this is passed through a low pass band limited signal? Here I have shown its frequency response x of omega. So we have drawn here the Fourier transform of this. So this is the time domain, and the signals, these are the frequency domain signals. So in frequency domain, we will come to know that yes, it is been passed to a low pass filter where its maximum frequency is omega. We know that here I can represent a frequency as FM also, or 2 pi FM. Okay. So we are taking care that this signal has been passed to a low pass band limited signal. So having only this frequency band, and this Fourier transform is drawn both the ways, right? Usually when you say low pass filter, you draw a signal like this. So this is only one sided. This we call it as two sided Fourier transform or Fourier representation, and that's why you see the spectrum of this signal like this. So this is the signal that we wanted to sample, and we have confirmed that it is a continuous time, finite energy, and a low pass band limited signal. Now this we wanted to sample. So how we are going to do it? What we are doing is we are using a impulse train. Now you all know what is impulse signal, and how you get an impulse train? By shifting the signal in time, we get the impulse train. So this is the impulse train that we have. So what we do is we have a sampler to which we give a signal x of t and the signal delta t, that is the impulse train, and the resultant signal is called a sample signal. So this is the continuous signal that we wanted to sample. This is the delta t, which is called as a sampling function, and it results into g of t, which is our sampled signal. So I am going to use a impulse train, and here I am making sure that this impulse train will have a time period of Ts. So we know that Ts, 1 upon Ts is what? Fs. So that is my sampling frequency. So whatever sampling frequency I wanted to keep, accordingly I have to generate this sampling function, that is the impulse train in that period. And when I am passing through this just two signals get multiplied, and this is the resultant signal that I am going to get, that is g of t. So you can say wherever I am having these samples, the delta functions present, I am going to get one sample here of the amplitude of this signal x of t. So this shape of this, it resembles the original signal. So here also you can see I am getting samples. If one sample I am getting at 0, the next sample I am getting at Ts, 2Ts, 3Ts, and so on. So after every sampling period or at a frequency of f of s, I am getting these resultant samples. Now if I just see this sampled signal in frequency domain, if I take the Fourier transform of this frequency domain of this g of t, this results into g of omega. And how it results? This is the result. Now what is this? This is the frequency spectrum of g of omega. So here you can see whatever spectrum we were having for x of t, the same spectrum is there, but there are repeated spectrums. Okay, the same spectrum is been repeated. And with what frequency they are repeating? they are repeating at a frequency of omega s. So I'm going to get the same frequency band from minus omega m to omega m. So the first lobe that I'm having is from minus omega m to omega m. But I'm not getting only one, because this is not the original signal. This is the sample signal. In sample signal, this is periodic. So, and with what period? It repeats itself after omega s. So the next lobe will be with respect to omega s. So it will be present from omega m to omega s plus omega n. Similarly, we will have one here from minus omega m to minus omega s minus omega m, which is centered at minus omega s. So after every, and this will repeat. You will see the same thing at 2 omega s, 3 omega s, 4 omega s. From here side you will see it at minus omega, 2 omega s, minus 2 omega s, and so on. So this is the resultant after you sample your signal x of t. So we have seen the original signal in time domain as well as in frequency domain. We have seen the resultant signal in time domain as well as in frequency domain. Now when we come to proof of this particular sampling theorem, what we need to prove here? What the statement says, the continuous signal can be completely represented and recovered from its samples. So the important thing is recovering the signal back. After sampling, if I am able to recover my original signal back, that means the sampling theorem has been satisfied and the original signal is recovered back. So this is what we wanted to prove here. And for that proof, we have to go to the frequency domain also. We are not going to prove it only in time domain. We have to go to frequency domain also. How frequency domain is more convenient. So as I have told you, if you see the frequency spectrum of my original signal is present from minus omega m to omega m. And if I see this frequency spectrum of the resultant signal, this is also present between minus omega m to plus omega m, but it is repeating itself. So what I want, what you can see is, we have in the sample signal, I am having my original signal, but it is in repeated way. So what I want, I just want only one lobe, which was there in my original signal. So how to get that lobe? You can pick any lobe from here. This one, this one, this one, all these are identical and all these are carrying the information of the original signal. So we have to just pick one of it and that's it. We will recover our original signal back. So what is our task here? Whatever sample signal is there, you just observe that signal in frequency domain. You will see various frequency spectrums, lobes in the frequency spectrum. You have to pick one. If I am able to separate out this particular lobe, and I will just discard all. Now you can see this one and this one will look similar, right? So that means what? We have recovered, and if I take the inverse Fourier transform of it, I am going to get back my original signal. So this is actually the task or the proof that you have to show. First we are going to sample the signal with delta t, and in the Fourier domain I am going to get all these lobes, out of which I have to just select one. If I am able to select this lobe properly, that means I can recover my signal back. In not all the cases, this is possible to recover this lobe. We will see this at the end of the proof. So just remember, we are going to go in frequency domain. We have to take Fourier transform and prove that. So we need to know few things. Like, let's now start with the signal x of t and delta t. Now x of t is the message signal. The message signal can be anything. It can be audio, video, or it can be anything. So we are going to represent the signal here, message signal, with x of t only. The second signal is delta t, the impulse train that we are going to use to sample the signals. So this we have to represent in mathematical way. Then only we will come to know what is g of t. Okay, so let's start with that. There are many possible ways, or there are many steps in which you can prove this. I am selecting the simplest one. That also is not simplest, but yes, you have some prior knowledge of it, so I think you can understand it very well. So we have a message signal x of t and we have a impulse train delta t. When I multiply, I am going to get j of t. Okay. So first of all, what we need to do is we need to find out how will I represent delta t signal, and for this we are taking help of trigonometric Fourier series. Okay. So you have learned trigonometric Fourier series. It has some standard form in which you can represent the signal in terms of cos and sine, right? So that is what we are going to do here, because if I wanted to find out the Fourier transform, I need to represent this in some terms. So that is what we are trying to do here. So this signal delta t can be represented in terms of its trigonometric Fourier series, like delta t is equal to a0, which will be a constant, plus summation n is equal to 1 to infinity an cos n omega 0 t plus bn sin n omega 0 t. So the first step, represent delta t, that is one of the signal, into trigonometric Fourier series. Okay, so where an and bn are unknown, so for that we have equations. An can be found out using the equation let's start with a0 first, sorry. How will we find out a0? Now these are all standard equations, right? So a0 is found out as 1 upon ts. So 1 upon time period. But we know that for delta t that we have considered a time period is how much? Ts, because both the samples are separated out by ts. So here the time period is ts. Integration minus ts by 2 plus ts by 2. So we are taking only one period of it. In one period, delta t dt. So we are trying to integrate delta t function in one period. Okay. So as we all know, in one period from minus ts by 2 to plus ts by 2, and I am going to get only one delta impulse only at 0. Okay. For other value, for other instances, it is going to be 0. So even if I am integrating it, what I am going to get is, there is nothing here to integrate in this whole period. I am having signal only at one instant of time. So there is no meaning to this integration, right? So after integrating also, what we are going to get here, only a single value of delta. That is nothing but the value at delta t is equal to 0. So I am going to get value of delta at only 0, right? So directly this integration you can write it as 1 upon ts into, this whole integration results into only delta 0, because in minus ts by 2 to ts by 2, as I have shown, only one impulse signal will be there. Okay, at only present only at one instant of time. And as we know, this is, suppose I am taking unit impulse signal, delta 0 will be equal to 1. So if this is equal to 1, this results into, or this final result is 1 upon ts. So I got the value of a0 as 1 upon ts. Similarly, we have to find out values of an and bn, and we have to put it in this equation, which will give me final equation of delta t. Okay. So similarly, we will find out values of an and bn. So let's record this value of a0 that we have got, that is 1 upon ts. Now how to find an? For an, the equation is, so this is again standard equation, 2 upon time period. Again the time period is ts, so we have taken ts. Integration minus ts by 2 to plus ts by 2 delta t. Now an is related to what? The cosine term. So here what we are going to integrate it with? Cosine term. The same term will come here, that is cos n omega 0 t dt. So if I am finding out a, I will be using this term for integration with dt. Okay, that signal that I am going to represent. Here also if you see, we are again integrating some signal cos omega 0 and omega n 0 t, which is multiplied by delta t. Now delta t is present only for one instant of time. So obviously the product also will be present only for one instant of time over this period minus ts by 2 to ts by 2. So there is no point in integrating. Again you can say that finally you can write this as 2 upon ts, which is a constant, and this you can represent it as delta 0 because this is going to present only for t is equal to 0. Rest everywhere it is going to be 0. So delta 0 into cos of n omega 0 t is what? 0, right? Because it is only present for t is equal to 0. So what is this? Comes out to be cos of 0, that is nothing but 1. Delta 0 is 1. So finally the result is 2 upon ts. So we got the value of an as 2 upon ts. Okay. So let's record this value. And let's go and find out the value of Bn. Now Bn is the component, or it's a multiplier of sine wave, right? So the same equation, 2 upon the time period, that is 2 upon ts, and you are integrating over one period of time, that is minus ts by 2 to ts by 2 delta t into the sine term. Okay, so same thing again, because this will be present only for t is equal to 0. This finally directly reduces to 1 upon 2 upon ts into delta 0 into sine of n omega 0 t is 0 here. You know that sine 0 is 0. So obviously the whole term becomes 0. So the value of Bn becomes 0. So let's record this value also. That Bn is equal to 0, and let's put these values back to delta t equation so that we will get the final equation. So what is delta t? This is 1 upon ts plus summation n is equal to 1 to infinity, n is 2 by ts cos n omega 0 t, and this particular term is going to be 0. So we are going to get only this cos n omega 0 t. Okay, so we got some equation for delta t in terms of cosine terms. And now again going back here, what we need to do is we need to find g of t, which is multiplication of these two signals. As I told you, the message signal can be anything. So right now we are not using any mathematical formula for the message signal, but now we have found out the mathematical formula, mathematical representation of delta t that we are going to put here. So g of t is going to be what? X of t into delta t. So what is x of t? X of t, I'll just write x of t, and delta t I'm going to replace this value as 1 upon ts plus, I'll take this 2 upon ts, which is a constant outside the summation. Summation n is equal to 1 to infinity cos of n omega 0 t. So this is the equation of g of t. This is how we can find out g of t. Okay, we have not ended here, still we have to go what more. So now if I multiply this, open this bracket, what I am going to get is x of t into 1 upon ts plus x of t into 2 upon ts and summation cos of n omega 0 t. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm taking this 1 upon t as common from both these terms. So finally we get 1 upon t is into bracket. What remains here is only x of t plus 2 times x of t into cos n omega 0 t. Okay, so now we got one equation in terms of ts, x of t and cos term. Okay, now again we are going to simplify this little bit more, because after taking the Fourier, because we have to take Fourier transform of this, the final aim is to find out g of omega, right? So it makes it will be more simpler if I more simplify this. So what we are going to do is we are representing now this cos term in terms of exponential. So how I can represent cos omega in terms of exponential. We need cos omega 0 t. We can write it as e raised to minus j omega 0 t plus e raised to plus j omega 0 t upon 2. All of you know this formula, right? So now we are going to apply this formula here. But only the thing that we have to notice here is my term is multiplied by 2. So this 2 and this 2 will get cancelled, and finally our cos n omega 0 t will be replaced only by this particular function. So now suppose here if I have cos 2 omega 0 t, I'll be representing it with e raised to j 2 omega 0 t, and here also 2 omega 0 t. So whatever is the multiplier term, accordingly you are going to replace it. So here we will be writing it as 1 upon ts into x of t plus, now this 2 and 2 got cancelled, so this 2 will not be there. So this will be x of t into what? This cos n omega 0. So where was our summation? Summation also is there. This is this summation here. So let's write the summation. And we are going to expand it for each and every term of n. So let's, before putting this exponential term, let's first solve this equation. So this will be 2 times x of t. First I'll expand this equation only. So 2 times x of t. For n is equal to 1, this term is going to be what? Cos of omega 0 t. Similarly, for n is equal to 2, it will be 2 of x of t into cos of 2 omega 0 t, and for every value of n there will be one term, so it will go up to infinity. Now for each term of each cos term here, we are going to replace this cos term with the exponential term. So here we get our g of t as, after replacing in this particular equation, what we get? We start with 1 upon ts that we have taken common. X of t will be as it is, plus 2 times x of t into cos omega 0 t. So now this cos omega 0 t I am going to replace with this. As I have told you, this is 2 and gets cancelled. So I get x of t into what? Into e raised to minus j omega 0 t plus x of t into plus e raised to j omega 0 t, right? So for only one term of cos, I am going to get 2 terms here. So first term multiplied x of t multiplied by e raised to minus j omega 0 t. Second, x of t multiplied by e raised to plus j omega 0 t. This is for one cos term. Similarly, for the next cos term, I will be getting x of t e raised to minus j. Now this is for n is equal to 2. So this will be e raised to minus j 2 omega 0 t. And similarly I get one more term, x of t e raised to plus j 2 omega 0 t. And similarly for each cos term I am going to get 2 terms. So this will go up to infinity. Okay, so this is how the final expression of g of t, the final, you can say, the expanded expression of g of t, which we have represented in terms of what? What are terms are there? X of t, which is nothing but your message term, and this message signal is multiplied by various exponential signals, right? E raised to minus j omega z t, e raised to plus j omega 0 t, minus j 2 omega 0 t, and so on. And this is how we can represent g of t. Now, as I have told you, to prove this theorem, we have to go to Fourier domain, right? So now we have got our resultant signal in time domain, that is g of t. Now we have to take its Fourier transform. That is, after taking Fourier transform, we will represent it by g of omega. Now if I take the Fourier transform of this signal, what it will be? 1 upon ts is constant, I'll keep it outside. What is the Fourier transform of x of t? Fourier transform of x of t is x of omega. I'll just write down x of omega plus, this is what? X of t multiplied by e raised to minus j omega 0 t. Now you must have learned the property, the time shifting property. What the time shifting property says? The time shifting property says that if you are multiplying any signal in time domain with the exponential term, it gets shifted in time and frequency domain. So if I multiply x of t raised to with e raised to plus j omega 0 t, this results in frequency domain signal, which will be shifted by omega 0. So I get omega minus omega 0. And if this x of t is multiplied in time domain by e raised to minus j omega 0 t, then it results into x of omega plus omega 0. So this is the time shifting property. So this property we are going to use here, because our term x of t is multiplied by e raised to minus j omega 0 t. So this is going to result into x of omega plus omega 0. So I'll write here x of omega plus omega 0 plus x of, for this next term it will be x of omega minus omega 0. Similarly for this, next is x of omega plus 2 omega 0 plus x of omega minus 2 omega 0, and it will go on for all values of n. So whatever spectrum that we had drawn in the first at the start of this lecture, the same thing it represents mathematically. X of omega represents the first lobe, which is at present at 0. This represents the next. This represents the one which is on the negative side. The next lobe on the positive side, the next lobe on the negative side, and so on. So we got this in frequency domain, which I can write in terms of summation also. This, all the terms combinedly can be written as, this is not g of t, this is g of omega, can be represented as 1 upon ts summation of all these terms. So summation from n is equal to minus infinity to infinity x of omega minus n omega 0. Okay, so this is the resultant signal after sampling in frequency domain. Okay, now final step, improving the sampling theorem. So that's from here, if I say that if I am going to follow the sampling theorem at the time of sampling, I can recover my original signal back. So here, depending on that value of ts, this ts here, this term ts represents it. So if I am following this, then there are three cases which are arising. One is oversampling, one is perfect sampling, and one is undersampling. So depending on this value of omega 0, what will be the omega 0? If I select omega 0 exactly equal to omega s, so these samples will be separated at what pace? At omega s. So that in that case I am going to get the lobes like this. So if my omega 0 is equal to omega s, so I'll get it as at omega minus, when I put n is equal to 0, it will be omega. When I put n is equal to 1, this will be omega minus omega s and omega plus omega s. If I put n is equal to, it will be omega minus 2 omega s and omega plus 2 omega s when I consider my sampling frequency as omega s, which is equal to exactly equals to 2 FM. I will not write omega s here, I will write Fs. When Fs is equal to exactly equals to 2 FM, it results into this particular spectrum. This is frequency axis. So this will be at 0. The next will be at omega s, because we have selected omega 0 as omega s. Here this will be at minus omega s and so on. Okay, so this is called as perfect sampling. This is the case I have considered. Now if I case Fs greater than 2 FM, what will happen? This is going to be oversampling. This represents oversampling. So what is happening here? Because it is oversampling, we are taking more samples, so that means omega, this frequency is more than omega s. So this will be 0. My omega s will be a little far distance, so the next lobe will go here, and this lobe will be here somewhere at minus omega. So you can see there is a distance, there is a gap between the repeated spectrums here. This is g of omega. And this is frequency axis. Every time you have to mention this whenever you are drawing it. And now last case, when this Fs is less than 2 FM, that means I am considering less value of omega 0. So what is the resultant? The first lobe you will get at 0. The second lobe, because now you have reduced the value of omega 0, this omega 0 will come near to this. So the next lobe will be here, and similarly I will get one lobe here at this side at minus omega s, and so on. So what do you see here? This is going to result into undersampling. What is happening here? The spectrum is overlapping. The spectrums are overlapping each other. Okay. So here this is we call it perfect, this is called oversampling, this is called undersampling. So as I have discussed before also, if I wanted to recover the signal back, this is my sample signal, right? If I wanted to recover my original signal back, what I want? I just want only one lobe out of all these repeated lobes. Okay. So I can, how I can do it? I can pass these signals, the resultant signal, through a filter, which is going to give me only that frequency which I wanted to get back. So as I've told you, even if all these lobes are similar, you can pick any one. So usually we pick up the lobe which is symmetric about or which is present at 0. So here if I use a low pass filter, okay, a filter which will give me only this lobe, what we have to do is the resultant signal we have to pass through a low pass filter. What the low pass filter will do? It will pass only low frequencies which are near to 0, and it will discard all the higher frequencies. This is what we want. So if this is the 0, these are the low frequencies present near about 0, and these are all high frequencies for that. So it will discard all these lobes and it will select only this particular lobe. Okay, this is not that simple as I am saying, but if I am using a low pass filter, I can select this lobe here, right now, right? I can just separate out this lobe like this if I use a filter like this. Similarly, here also I can do that. If I apply a filter like this, I can separate out the lobe. Okay, but what the case here? Even if I am applying a filter here, what is happening? This lobe is coming fully, but there is some part of another lobe coming into picture. Okay, so what is happening? The high frequency, this is for this this part is a low frequency. For this lobe, this is the high frequency. So the high frequency gets superimposed over low frequency. Okay, so here there is a overlapping. So in this case, even if I am using a filter, I cannot filter out the whole of my signal, but here the signal is getting corrupted. Okay, so this is called as aliasing effect, which is going to because of this we are not able to recover our original signal back in its original form. So we have to avoid this undersampling. Okay, so how will you prove this? Once I get this, and this is going to be 3 cases: oversampling, perfect sampling, and undersampling. So after I get my sample signal, we can use a low pass filter and we can recover our original signal back in case of oversampling and in case of perfect sampling. But in case of undersampling, it is not possible because the lobes are interfering or overlapping each other. That means aliasing effect is happening here. Okay, so this is the proof of sampling theorem that you have to give when it is asked in exam. Okay, aliasing we will cover in the next class. Thank you.